Hi, this is Lady Cee. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Critical Thought. And in this video, I'm going to be having a power chat with Rashuna. And we're going to be talking about should people who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, should they talk to their children about why they actually left the religion? So Rashuna, thank you so much for being on the program. Do you think that people should tell their children that, why they've left the organization?
Oh, yes, for sure. Absolutely.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I spoke to this lady that I know. She's an ex-witness, and she has a daughter. And she had her child after she left the organization. And her daughter is now 16 years old. So now she feels like her daughter wants to know about her involvement with the Jehovah's Witnesses, but she thinks that her daughter is too young to understand it and comprehend it. So she wants to wait until she's older. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that sometimes as adults, sometimes we underestimate what our children know, but our children know a lot more than we can imagine.
That's true. That's true. So give us a few examples about how children can understand more than what we think they can. What do you got to say about that?
I definitely think my kids understood what was going on, especially my middle child. He just turned 8. But he went through what we went through. He saw the shunning personally, people that he's known, even his grandparents not speak to him. So they catch on to these things really fast.
Mm-hmm. And they know exactly what's happening. So since leaving the organization, how did you go about discussing this information with your children?
Well, I think the biggest fear that we were worried about is maybe someone talking to our children in the future as they get older. Maybe they might run across another witness that they used to know, or even my parents. And so we wanted to make sure that they knew the truth about why we left, so that they wouldn't get someone to maybe tell them, that it wasn't correct, and maybe persuade them back into that organization. So we talked to them about the shunning process, why they do it, why we were shunned for basically not believing in the teachings anymore, which is why they consider us an apostate. But we these things to our oldest and our middle child very clearly, so that they understand that it's important that they need to think about these things on their own. Never allow someone else to do your own thinking.
That's true. That is so true, because I found that a lot of people may feel that, when they get older, if you don't tell your children about why you left, and then they come into contact with someone that basically, coerces them into believing again, they'll just look back and say, oh, my parents just weren't spiritual, and that's why they stopped going.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly. And then the scary part is, like I was telling my oldest, is if you go on with these teachings, if you listen to this, then one day you're going to have to shun us. And that's like the greatest fear, is not having your child speak to you. So they needed to know that.
That is absolutely correct. Definitely. Definitely. So now, do you communicate better with your children now?
Oh, man, I know for sure, 100% for sure, that we communicate so much better. My kids tell me everything, and some things I probably don't want to hear, but they are very truthful, very honest, very, they feel like they can come to us and talk to us about anything. My oldest, he's more familiar with it because he's 15.
Okay.
So he was in the organization a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I am really happy about, he told me, he said, I felt when I talked to you, I couldn't express my doubts.
Oh.
And that was like, wow. Because it's true, as witnesses, if you have doubts, it means that you're weak spiritually.
Right.
And now he can express that with us. He can tell us maybe what he's feeling or what he doesn't believe in, and we're not judging him.
Exactly. Because I think that when we, even when I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I was listening to some of the people in the congregation, and the first thing that they would do is they would say stuff like, how do you think Jehovah would feel about that? Or they're always
Mm-hmm.
trying to make the children feel guilty, or feel like they don't want to come forward to talk about these things. How do your children confide in you now?
Oh, I mean, again, like I said, they tell us everything. There's a funny little story. Tobias had said something to another student, my middle child.
Uh-huh.
He's the vocal one. And the teacher had told him that what he said wasn't appropriate. So he came home and we didn't get a note, or the teacher didn't call us, but he told us what he did. And he goes, I'm not for sure, but I think what I did was wrong, or what I said was wrong, but I just don't get it. And so we talked about it, and he actually went back to the school, apologized to the teacher, apologized to the student, and the teacher called me and she said, I wasn't even going to tell you because I thought we handled it and it wasn't a big deal. But for him to come and talk to you and then come back and acknowledge what he did wrong and apologize, like, wow, like a lot of kids wouldn't even talk to their parents about what they did.
Right. So, tell the experience about what happened with your son when the teacher discovered that you all had started celebrating the holidays.
Yes. So our all three of our kids basically are going through the same elementary school. Our oldest went there first. So all the teachers that my second son is getting, he pretty much is getting all the same teachers that our oldest had. So they were all familiar with us not doing holidays. So last year was the first time we started to do the holidays, and it was a huge shock. Like they knew something is going on. So his teacher pulled him aside and asked him, what happened? Why are you guys not Jehovah's Witnesses? Like, not that she was upset. She was very happy about it, but she just wanted to know. And so my middle son was like, well, we stopped being Jehovah's Witnesses because they teach lies. And they say certain things that are not in the Bible, and it's not true. So we're not going to do that anymore because they don't tell the truth. So now we can do all these holidays, and I can do birthdays. Like, he was so excited. But like, for him to tell her, that the teachings aren't true, or everything that we thought, was not true anymore. He was very clear on that, which helps us to realize that we are explaining it the right way.
Well, that's really, really good. I know you were very proud of him for being able to take a
Yes.
stand. Isn't it interesting how we talked about taking a stand when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and now that we left, it's like it's in reverse, where they're taking their stand about why we left. And it's really commendable for you and Terrence, and how you're teaching your children about the past, and so that they don't make mistakes going forward.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you fear the most about your parents communicating with your children? Because your parents are still Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes. Yes. And that's why we tell them right away about the teachings, because one day when they're older and we're not all living together, they may reach out to try to contact them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they do, they're going to want to share the beliefs, and they may give another example, or reason rather, as to why they didn't speak to them all those years. I want my kids to be fully aware as to the reasons why, and not to fall for that. I want them to understand that this is the teachings that Jehovah's Witnesses do teach when it comes to shutting their family.
Right.
And I want them to be strong enough and to use critical thinking, so that they can say, hey, I know personally you weren't in my life for how many years, and that's not right.
That's true. Now, since
Yeah.
you guys have stopped going to the Kingdom Hall, have your parents tried to contact you?
No, not that I am aware of. Not personally. I haven't gotten any messages or phone calls, so no.
Okay.
No.
That's amazing. That's so sad when you think about how a religion can divide families. Well, do you have any other examples that you want to give about how you communicate with your children, or tell our listening audience about the importance of, talking to their children about why they left the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, there's one that really has stuck out in my mind, and this is the reason why I knew I was going to explain to my children and continue to explain to them. Me and Terrence, a long time ago, when we were pioneering, we got invited to speak to a college group about our religion. And so we prepared all of our stuff and we went up to the college and we showed them how our school works and, everything. And so, of course, there was one student who was constantly questioning us, which was kind of interesting because it means that he was researching and he actually knew the truth, but we were ignoring him thinking that he was being annoying. But anyway, there was a young girl and she said, my grandparents are Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I said, well, what are their names? And she told us. And then I said, oh, I do know them. They're in a different congregation. And she's like, I've never met them before because my mother left a long time ago. And so they've never spoken to my mom or me. And she looked like in her 20s. So okay. She wasn't young. I mean, she was young, but she wasn't to the point where she couldn't have understood. And what she said, what that really shocked me, is she goes, I don't know why they don't talk to us.
Oh, my God.
I thought, wow,
That's amazing.
Yeah, that shocked me because somewhere in that time, her mom should have explained to her, because if her grandparents ever did reach out, they could flip that story and say, well, your mom, wasn't spiritual, or they could say anything, basically. And then they could start preaching to her. She could become a witness, and then she wouldn't talk to her mother again.
That's true.
All that time, her mom could have stopped that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot more of that going on than we realize. And a lot of it could be because these people that are leaving are walk-away believers. And with them being walk-away believers, they don't understand that they should talk about it. But now that we've been on the internet with YouTube and all of these different social media outlets, there's more and more people that are walking away and they are fully informed and they understand why they left. So definitely for people like that, they should tell their children why they left their religion,
Yes.
Because I had someone to tell me that what this one guy, we had this conversation, and he's not fully out of the organization yet, but because he still kind of goes to the assemblies and stuff like that, right? But he and his wife have decided that they're going to let their children participate in sports and other extracurricular activities. And the thing is, they don't want to tell the children anything about this not being the truth. Because his attitude was, I don't want to influence them either way. And he felt like they should make their own decision. With the way he's talking, it's not that you're influencing them either way. It's you're giving them information about how to make wise decisions in your life. And to walk away knowing this is not the truth, to sit there and let them make their own decision later on, that's not how this works.
Right.
So his kids can grow up. Yeah, his kids can easily grow up and say, well, my mom and dad never said anything about why we couldn't go. I could do all these things. I went to college. I graduated. Now my life is in shambles. And I do remember a place where it was really nice and they talked about paradise. And then, or whatever they learned at the Kingdom Hall. Next thing you know, they're going back to the Kingdom Hall, getting involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And now, like you said, shunning their parents.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yes. And not just for that, but for everything. It's our responsibility to teach our kids not to fall for stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, there's other religions out there that have this kind of cultish thing, and so and not just religions, there's groups, there's different things. And so you need to teach them before you get involved in something.
Right.
You need to do your research.
That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much, Rashuna, for being on the program and talking about your experiences and how you and your children communicate in your household. And I'm just so happy to hear that you guys are really enjoying being so much closer than you were when you were part of the organization.
Thank you so much, Lady Cee. I enjoyed it.
So now I'm going to be talking to David, who wants to weigh in on the conversation about why you should tell your children about why you left the Watchtower. So, David, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think you really need to think about the process, think about the big picture. And what I mean by that is children are really, really smart. We all remember when early ages when we can recall things, 3, 4, 5 years old, and pick up things. And generally what can happen is they might remember certain things, and as they get older, they might circle back to that environment. So it is definitely something that you have to take seriously. Any indoctrination that was effective on you will certainly be effective on a younger mind. It's because they're inexperienced. Well, they don't know. They don't have enough experience to make an educated decision on right from wrong. And they become very passionate about whatever training they're getting. So you take your children, for example. You know, they're in a hall, they're seeing these same talks or the videos that they have now. Which one of us can't remember my book of Bible stories? All little pictures and everything comes to mind. So you might leave and take your children with you, but at any given point in time, those memories can be activated. Maybe they have some stressful events in life, and they go right back. They go right back to that organization, and you might not even see it happen. And all of a sudden, your child goes back to a place where you escaped, you got away from, and then they're not talking to you anymore. So you got to take the time, just like you wash your mind clean of all of that propaganda and everything. It might even take more effort, at least you to be aware that let me work with my child. I don't care what age they are when you left, but actually if they're younger folks, let me work with them. Let me deprogram them just as easy. I'll give you an example. I took my 4-year-old to McDonald's yesterday, and we drove past Taco Bell. Now, he's not a good reader yet. He's just learning the words, and he yells out, "I want to go to Taco Bell." And I'm looking at him and said, "So how do you know it's Taco Bell? You're not even fully reading it." But the point was, he sees the commercials, the signs, and everything. A 4-year-old could pick it up just like that. Well, they picking up the information about the organization and all of that doctrine and all of those things. Those seeds are being planted in them just as easy. So you gotta, if you don't want to have an unpleasant surprise, and your child comes back, "Hey, Dad, hey, Mom, you know what? I don't like the way my life is going. I started a Bible study, or I'm going back to the meetings." Because if that happens, you got a fight on your hands.
Do you know that happened with my sister?
What happened? That happened with your sister?
Mm-hmm. What happened with my sister was I can't remember if it was after we left or not, but she never got baptized.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, she decided that she wanted to get spiritual. So she started having Bible studies with Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
And she didn't do anything with the study because she ended up, suspending the study because she was getting tired of them coming up her house talking all that crazy stuff. But Can you imagine what would have happened if she would have went all the way through with it? Because she never found out it wasn't the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came by her house and she was having some issues, she started studying with the witnesses. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So even though your sister never got to the point where she was baptized, turned around and started having a study.
Yep.
And that's the whole point that we're making here. Is I think the way I see it is like this. If you were raised in the business, the Watchtower Society, you didn't have the option to make that decision. This is what I want to do because this is what your parents told you to do. I think what really makes me cringe is that you don't know that message that they sell about paradise or about we'll solve all of your problems. You're down and out. Because in life, we're all going to go through some situations. I don't care who you are, how much money you have, the color of your skin. There's always going to be something, some challenge, some event you're going to have to dig deep inside and pull yourself out of it. But they prey on people like that. And I'm thinking about your sister. She may have been going through a challenging situation. What's the first thing she goes back to? You know, that the Watchtower Society, they said all these things. It's just like being in a relationship, right? You break up with somebody, say you're not dating for a while, and then you're lonely, you go right back because you're filling a void. And it's a dangerous void. And that's why, you know, I sit there and say, you got to expect that this is a possibility that can happen to children. And your sister would sound like she was an older person. What about somebody that's 5 or 6 or 7 years old or 8 years old for that matter? You know?
Right. That's true. That's absolutely true.
I've been gone now from the Watchtower Society for years. I would say over 10 years at this point. And I remember my oldest would have been about 5 or 6 when I started bringing him regularly to the meetings. And now he's 16. And I could not imagine what I would go through if I got a phone call. He knocks, he says, Dad, you know what? I remember some things about the Jehovah's Witnesses. I met somebody out and, you know, they knocked on the street, and now, you know, I want to start a study. Or I'm studying now, and he don't even tell me. And then, you know, he progresses in that progress, and then one day he doesn't want to speak to me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just imagine the feeling with that. Now, I'm not going to let that happen. There's no way it's going to happen. But, brother, you ain't joining the circus. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. You know, but it just makes the threat and the reality is real. And it makes me, you know, reinforce my conviction. Hey, you know, let me have some conversations with them and explain to them, you know, this is why this is not real. This is why, real simple, you know, these things don't add up. And just like when somebody preys on the weak, you know, they prey on your feelings. They prey on when you're down, because that's when the message is going to seem really, really good to you. Not when you're happy and all things are doing well. When you're going through the normal challenges of life and you hit some hard bumps, that message can really, really seem good to you. But it's just like drinking alcohol. For the moment, it tastes good and you feel better. But once it wears off, you really still have to deal with the problem. You go back to that, you're going to have a lot more problems to deal with once the love bombing wears off. So it's just...
Yeah. Good points. Well, I really appreciate you weighing in on this matter, and we look forward to hearing more from you. And in fact, you're going to be doing an upcoming interview to talk about your life experience in an upcoming podcast with The Critical Thought. So thank you.
Right.
So thank you. Yep. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the program.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.